So let me first actually introduce. Welcome everyone to Living with Christ. This is a seminary class that you're in, if you didn't know. And our theme is Christian initiation. This is what we're taking up now, beginning today, in the light of how do we work with the darkness in these times? What can we do? How can we cultivate, remember, the moral substance that will counterbalance the necessary Ahrimanic oppression that we all must walk through? How can we counterbalance, not get rid of, the Ahrimanic oppression, the oppressive forces of the adversary that we all must face and walk through? Rudolf Steiner describes that as a counterbalance, that we're called not to fix the Ahrimanic oppression, but to endure with a clean heart, a peace-filled, love-filled, Christ-filled heart. That's the picture that we see also in the book of Revelation, that the saints are not defeating evil, solving it, fixing it, mastering it. They're enduring evil until God throws it into the pit. God's job. How do you endure? How do you maintain a human heart, a fleshy heart, a love-filled heart in and through betrayal? That's the orientation that we're looking at. Remember, the greatest problem for Jesus and for the saints is the hardening of the heart. It's not biological death. It's not an empty bank account. It's not an illness. It's not that you have to live under 5G. Those are not actual problems for Christ. Those are actually karmic necessities that have to be. The problem is if your heart becomes stone in that process. O Lord, bestow upon me a new heart, not a heart of stone, but a heart that is soft and of flesh. So moral forces, the forces of forgiveness, the forces of hope, the forces of hope in hopelessness, faith when everything is lost, love even for your enemies. This is the substance, amazing that we can call it a substance, the substance that will build a new heaven and a new earth when the material one is falling away. So that's the orientation. That's how we can face and battle evil. So today we're going to take up the first step in one of those windows into the moral forces of Christ that can help our heart stay human or become human. And we're going to take up the window of the washing of the feet in the Gospel of John. This is the first step in so-called Christian initiation. But what is Christian initiation? It's very important for us to remember that Jesus Christ is the image and likeness of our truest self. It's very important to remember, like Paul says in Colossians, he is the image of the invisible God. Or like he says in Romans chapter 8, we are pre-purposed by God, whom knew us before creation. We're pre-purposed to be conformed to his image, Jesus Christ's image. To be conformed to his image, so that Jesus Christ can be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters, many brothers. Are you following? Jesus Christ is a reality, a real being, but he's also the archetype of the shape and likeness that we're all to become. And how can you become something if you can't begin to start to imitate it? If you don't have a picture of what that is before you. When you were small, 0 to 3, Christ was doing his thing in you so that you could stand, think, or speak and think. That all happened without you having to do anything, thankfully. But when we become mature, we need to freely have the possibility of taking up the image before us and becoming that through our own decision. So Christ does not stay in us. He leaves at 3 so that we can develop eye consciousness, lower eye consciousness. And our truest self then is in the Spirit and in Christ. So when we come to the altar and he appears at the altar in the form of the priest, we see, oh, there's my truest self. That's our hope. How can I begin to become in that image and likeness? When we read the gospel, we see Jesus Christ is the image and likeness of what we're to be conformed to. We see, for example, him in John 17 praying out loud for all of the disciples. Does he not? He prays for them, that they may be not taken out of the world, but kept in the world and protected from the evil one. He prays that they may stay connected so that he and his Father and all of humanity will be one. He prays out loud for his beloved ones. So if you are to become in the image and likeness of Christ, you too will need to learn to pray for your beloved ones, as he does, out loud and inwardly. But he has a very specific telos of what he's praying for. He's not praying for, oh, I hope Karen gets $1 million. What would I do with it? She says, you could give it to me. I'd form 2 new congregations with that money. Yeah. So we also, when we pray for others, we can learn from him in his archetypal way of praying. He's got specific types of aims. I pray that they stay in the presence of the adversary in the world, but are protected from the adversary. You see that how that also aligns with our communion? I know you, Christ, I confess to you and what is revealed through you, and you're going to protect me from the adversary's might, not the adversary himself. The adversary is still there, but the might is taken. You see how that has a specific archetype and quality? So, friends, Christian initiation is nothing other than deciding out of your own free lower eye to begin to become a chalice and receive more and more the activity and archetype and image and likeness that Jesus Christ himself reveals. So that you too can follow the word, the destiny that the Father has for us, to be conformed to his image and likeness. Now, for the modern human being conformed sounds a little bit unfree. Does it not? Do you want to be conformed to something? So it wouldn't be helpful to understand this principle, this being conformed to his image and likeness, as something that is forcing you into a cookie cutter. Because the lower self has freedom. I don't have to learn to forgive my enemies. I don't have to. You're free. So why would you ever want to conform yourself to that image? To be shaped? Why would you want to take up the path of Christian initiation, friends? Have you heard about it? Scourging is the next step. You interested? Crowning with thorns. Why would you choose such a thing? You notice it's not conforming like forcing you into something. Christ himself was not forced. He offered his life freely. So if God forced us, that wouldn't conform us. Rather, he offers the image and likeness to us. What makes us want to be conformed? What is it? Why do you want to be? Do you even want to be in the image of light and likeness of Jesus Christ?
His peace.
His peace. Okay, Melanie says his peace. Salvation. I want these things.
Choose his pain.
Yeah, choose his pain over our pain. Okay. Lots of reasons. At the end of the day, though, only you can say. Only you can say, because it must be free. What I can say out of my own freedom at this point, why do I want to be more and more conformed to his image and likeness, is because I find him so beautiful. I cannot think of a more beautiful thing, being, reality in the universe than the sacrificial love of Christ Jesus on the cross. It is so unbelievably beautiful. And I have found that I love that beauty more and more and more and more. Why? I don't know. I think when you find something beautiful and you love it, it has its own reason in it. There's no why. Because I love it. Why do I love my child? I just love my child. They're so beautiful. Yeah. So this is a way to start to understand, whoa, okay, Christian initiation is a process where we see actually in Jesus Christ is a reality that feels more my truest self than I feel now. And I'm going to try to imitate that. I'm going to try to devote myself to that, because what I put my attention to, I become. What I begin to love more, I start to emulate and practice. And this is the deep principle. Rudolf Steiner also did this, friends. You can see Rudolf Steiner in his biography. His great initiation moment was to stand. He was looking for his truest self. And he was graced with, at the bottom of his kind of powerlessness of trying to find his truest self in his skin, which he couldn't. He was graced with coming and standing before the mystery of Golgotha in a festival of knowledge, he describes. Standing before Jesus Christ. And he had the experience, my true self is not in me, it's being given to me by Golgotha, by Christ Jesus. Oh, that's the image and likeness of my true self. Let me more and more drink that in. Until he demonstrated it also in many ways, but one very big way, when the Goetheanum burned. That was a crucifixion for Rudolf Steiner. Let's not mince words here. That was a crucifixion. And a resurrection as well. What was the resurrection in his biography?
Rebuilding.
The rebuilding, yes.
Building the
The Christmas conference and the foundation stone and the new founding. Yeah. He, in his being, in his own way, became an image and likeness of Jesus Christ. He went through a washing and a scourging and a crowning and a crucifixion and a resurrection. Lazarus himself also. Think about Lazarus, the rich young man in the Gospel of John. What happens with him? He gets sick, but his illness, is he sick? Is he dead? He's wrapped, put in a tomb. He goes through a death. And Jesus calls him out. That's his resurrection. That's his crucifixion and resurrection. And Jesus says to him, I am your life. Imagine, your life is not in you. Lazarus comes face to face with a being that says, I am your life. Whew. That means if I want to have life, if I'm Lazarus, I have to be constantly in connection with this being, like a fountain. I'm a cup, he's a fountain. And then later, Rudolf Steiner describes later incarnations of this being, where his etheric body is imitating Christ's etheric body. And if you want to be in connection with him, you have to go through his signature experience, death and resurrection. You see how it's similar? He's an image and likeness of Jesus Christ. Paul as well. Paul was a fanatical Jew that was killing people. He had to die to all of that, fall off his horse, and be resurrected in serving and seeing Christ in his community, suffering many, many things, but he didn't just suffer them. He knew they were like Christ's crucifixion. He was trying in his own way to be in image and likeness. Yeah? So this is the kind of principle. It's also, I want to say one more thing about Christian initiation before we go on. It's also very important to remember the signature of the hierarchies in our time. Why do we feel uncomfortable with being conformed to a set form? Because actually, our destiny is not to just do the form. That was the half new mysteries, the astral mysteries. When, for example, at the Mass, you just read the Mass, that was it. If you did the form, it would be fulfilled. That was when, esoterically speaking, the spirits of form were creative. The spirits of form, the Elohim. Following the form, following the rules was rightful then, merely. Rudolf Steiner describes that now things have changed in the heavens. The spirits of persona, the spirits of personality, the rank right below the archai, sometimes they're called, right below the spirits of form. They've upgraded. They've evolved to become creative. The spirits of egoism, Rudolf Steiner says, have evolved now to creator status. These are the spirits that are actually guiding the impulses of our earthly eye, the one that says yes and no. So think about that. If there's been an evolution in the beings that are actually fundamentally guiding our earthly eye, the lower eye, the yes and no, the free eye, and they have become creative, what does that mean for your earthly eye? It too is being called to become creative in the midst of the form. Follow me now. This is why we have all over the place spiritualities that say what your eye decides can be creative, although it's a bit shadowy now. This is why Rudolf Steiner gives a new sacrament, a new form, but says it's not enough to just read the words. You have to be inwardly creating them at the same time. It depends on how you read the words. Now, your earthly eye and its activity matter. It's not the only thing, there's still the form given, but it matters how you work with the form. In other words, you're meant to become co-creative with the given form. That's the fundamental reason why we have a new sacrament, because the old sacrament was given as a form revelation merely. Now we're called to inwardly participate with the form. when the priest says, "Myself lies lamenting on the ground, raise it." There's meant to be a cooperation in the priest and in the congregation. Before, that was just not necessary. You just read the words. The spirits of form ruled. Now, the spirits of egoism have become creative, and they're calling us to also become co-creative. This is very important. So we're called, the form of Jesus Christ has been given, has it not? We can see it in the gospel. We can see it at the altar. Will we become co-creative with it? Will we take up the form in our own way, like Rudolf Steiner, like Paul, like Lazarus, and consciously participate and become images and likenesses? This takes away, for me at least, the feeling that I'm being just forced into a box. That's not good enough. I'm needing to find it in and through my own I activity. Good. So now that I've introduced us a little bit to the picture and principle of Christian initiation as connected to the aims of God to be conformed in his image and likeness, let's do our inner exercise. So this too can be seen in this light. Why are we going to ask Christ to come into our hearts? Just so we can feel better? Maybe. But also because the more he comes into us, the more we can become in his image and likeness. It's like you are what you eat. I'm sorry to be so crude. But we're ingesting Christ Jesus. And what you put into your body starts to fill out your form. Good. Okay, so I would suggest turning slightly away from the screen. And remember, we have 3 steps: finding peace, awake stillness, finding something we're wrestling with, and then allowing that to be there as we turn to Christ and ask him to fill our hearts. So take a deep breath and come into stillness, awake stillness. And now don't work too hard, but just see, is there anything that you're wrestling with, that you're struggling with? Just try to name it. Don't try to figure it out, but just let it be there. Try to name it. And now allow that wrestling, that struggle to be there, and turn your hearts to Christ. Try to feel his presence. My heart be filled with your pure life, O Christ. My heart be filled with your pure life, O Christ. my heart be filled with your pure life, O Christ. Good. Slowly come back. Hmm.
Probably about 10 minutes ago.
Did it? Who knows? All right, friends, can you still hear me? Yeah. Good. So let's take up an example of a form that we can begin to be actively taking into ourselves and finding our own particular relationship in creative activity with this form of a revelation of Jesus Christ. Remember, he shows us what our truest self is. Our truest self can be received from him. So the washing of the feet has three main, at least for today's purposes that I want to touch on, three main archetypes, principles, pictures, activities. And you can see here, I don't know if you can see that, but I tried to draw, not the greatest drawing ever. This is Jesus Christ, and he's washing one of the disciples' feet. Yeah, you can see that? Okay. So washing the feet. And there's three aspects that I want to point to because I'm going to read the text actually. And the first is that Jesus Christ becomes the servant of his disciples, of his beloved ones. Do you serve anyone? For real? The second archetype that we'll touch in on, hopefully, we'll see how long we have, is washing the feet. What does this mean? When Christ washes our feet, what does that mean? Is he still doing that? If we want to wash someone's feet, what does that actually mean in reality?
Well, that was done at this time to anybody who entered the house.
True. Yeah, that was a practice then. Yeah. Third, the most difficult. How do we accept and work with the betrayer? Have you ever been betrayed? It's one of the most, it could be the most difficult experience in human life. Betrayed. Have you ever been betrayed? Yeah. Okay. It's pretty hard. How does Christ work with that? How does he work with it in a way that we can also become imitators of?
Are we thinking of Jesus, the people who
Certainly, certainly. So these are the three that I want to touch on. Let's see if we can't hear them in the text. What's happening there? And how does Christ work with them so that we can put them before us and start to use them as an archetype? Yeah? One more story before we start. I was in Hillsdale, of course, as you all know, last week, the synod. And one of my goddaughters lives there, and I visited her on the Friday evening. And her littlest sister, Nora, is 3.5. And she came up to me and said, "You want to play rummy?" I said, "I don't play cards." She said, "No, no, no, you do." She sat down, she deals about, we played rummy. And I said, "I think it's time for your bed." She said, let me ask my mom. Hmm? "I think it's time for your bed." And she said, let me ask my mom." She asked her mom. "Yes, it's bedtime." "Okay." I said, "You need to go upstairs so you can be with the angels and go to the angels up in the heavens." She looks at me and she says, "Don't you know? The angels are right here." I scratched my bald head and I said, "Oh yeah, you're right." And then she sat down next to me. She was very curious about me. And she looked at me and she said, "No, no," I said. I asked her, "Well, why are they here and not up there?" And she looks at me and she says, "Don't you know? Because they love us. Because they love us." Now, who can see a Christ impulse in that child's word? Where is Christ? Is he in the center of the universe, as some spiritual teachers would like to tell us today? No. Is he in the sun? No. Don't worship the sun, friends. He's here with us and in us, but also walking with us, literally, as other, weaving your destiny, your life. And why? Why isn't he hanging out on the sun? It would be better. You wouldn't have to deal with Armand. Because he loves us. You see, out of the mouth of babes comes the truth. This is also connected to Christian initiation. Our truest self is here, walking with us. Will we become in his image and likeness? So let's read John chapter 13. If you want to read along, be my guest. I'm reading the ESV version, the English Standard Version. And we only have 15 minutes. Oh boy. That's okay. We'll continue next time, however far we get. Now, so I'm going to read a bit and we're going to see if we can't stop at these 3 points, just so we have a guideline. Yeah. Now, before the feast of Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father. What is Jesus's hour? Golgotha. That's his hour. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. That's a mystery word, telos, to the end. When is the end? When will Jesus stop loving us? To the end. He loved them to the end. Yeah, all the way to the end of Earth evolution. Verse 2, during supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, he rose from the supper. Okay, so they're having supper. Was the washing of the feet before the supper, like traditionally it was? You washed your feet before the supper or after the supper? Apparently, if we stay true to the text, it could very well be that they started eating and he rose from the supper during. He laid aside his outer garments and taking a towel, tied it round his waist, and then poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. So you can picture that. Yeah. He had a basin, he had a towel wrapped around him. He was wiping his feet, their feet. He came to Simon Peter, our good old Peter, who said to him, Lord, do you wash my feet? And Jesus answered him, well, I'll wait. So Peter is saying, no, why would it be a problem? Have you ever had your feet washed?
Yeah.
Maybe. We did that here once. Twice. I mean, back then, of course, they wore mostly sandals, and this was in the Middle East where it's hot. So their feet were dirty. My feet are not so dirty, I don't think. But it's a very private thing. It's like, and the dirt, therefore, is private dirt, if you follow the image. Do you have some private dirt in your soul? You see what because we have to look at this as a symbol too. This is symbolic of Jesus coming to the feet. What do the feet do? Yeah. Sorry. They carry you. Where? To your destiny. They carry you to your destiny. So he wants to be close to and take care of the thing that will take you to your destiny. What's also part of your destiny? You're going to have to meet the private dirt. There's no dirt in you that will not come to you. You cannot hide from your karmic destiny. All will be revealed. If that doesn't give you a little bit of a fear, you're not healthy. You need a little fear of God. That's because it's going to be crucifixion. Jesus comes and picks up the feet, the destiny tool, and connects himself. What do I say? We'll see. Connects himself with its dirt, with your private dirt. I didn't expect to say that, but that's funny. Okay. So he goes on. He came to Simon Peter who said, Lord, do you wash my feet? I don't necessarily want God to look at my private dirt. It's very confronting. Have you ever wanted to hide from God? Maybe put it in a different way. Have you actually ever wanted to be seen by God? Or are you always hiding? Jesus answered him, "What I am doing, you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand." And Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered him, "If I do not wash you, you will have no part with me." Okay, what is going on? You will have no share with me. Meros is the Greek word. To have a share, to be part of, to be connected to be in. Meros. So let's stop here. Jesus is bending down. He's not being just his equal. He's serving something. A servant washes your feet. Is it not true? You wouldn't have the Lord of the house say, "Hey, Lord, come over here, wash my feet." Unless they're a Christian, yeah, right? He's lowering him. So first of all, if we look at the image and likeness of Jesus Christ, he's taking himself off his throne, taking off his crown. You all have thrones and crowns, by the way, and humbling himself to serve another person. He's kneeling. And he's not just serving, he's serving the destiny tool of another and making himself intimately connected with the private dirt of another. And when he does this, you could say, well, wait a minute. What are you talking about? What I am doing, you do not understand. Of course I understand. You're washing my feet. What's there to understand? And you only understand it later, afterward. After what? After Golgotha? Yet, although we know that the apostles didn't understand even after Golgotha, they only started to begin to understand with Whitsun, little bits. So when is this afterward? Is it today? Yeah, this is a living question. You don't understand what I'm doing. Did you know that Christ Jesus is washing your feet now? Actually? But you don't understand it. When will you? After what? What does that mean? He's serving your destiny. This is a picture of him as Lord of karma. He's actually connecting himself to your karmic destiny and beginning to take up the dirt that it be washed clean. Peter says, you'll never do it. You'll never wash my feet. Because he's not understanding. He just thinks he's the Lord, and why would you do that? It's below you, it's beneath you. He's thinking in worldly terms. Jesus Christ is thinking in cosmic, eternal terms, God's terms. And Peter's going to also betray him. Yeah. So this is what a servant, the first principle of becoming in the image and likeness of Christ, is being willing to actually bear one another's karma. To actually not pry, but be interested when the private dirt of another is revealed. And not try to fix it, but you will have no part of me. You will have no share of me if I don't do it. Think about that for a second. He doesn't say to Peter, you won't be fully fixed if I don't do this for you. You will have no share in me. That means Christ is picking up and uniting himself with the karmic destiny of Peter. That's in him now. Sometimes people think that lenkers are like the bosses, the kings, and they get to go around and lord around the region, tell everyone what to do. That's actually, well, this just doesn't work.
Oh, where to go?
Tell them where to go. Yeah, but right? There is a sending, but that's actually a whole collaboration. It only looks like I'm just the one with the power and boom, yeah. But it's actually a whole collaboration. But in reality, or at least the way the lenker can find its most truest expression, is when you're the servant of your colleagues. You're actually there anytime their hidden dirt comes out. You bear it and work with them and suffer it with them. You unite yourself with all the problems of the region and hope that your heart can bear it by praying to Christ constantly. And what about Oberlenkers? Are they the big bosses? No, Oberlenkers are the servants of the Lenkers. They're there to care for the sufferings of the Lenkers. Unite themselves with the hidden dirt and bear it. What about priests? Are they the boss of the congregation? They're there to serve the congregation and unite themselves with the sufferings and dramas and dynamic nonsenses that are going on and unite themselves with it, suffer with. You see the principle? What about the Erzoberlenker? Is he the big boss? Gets to tell everyone? No, he's actually the one that suffers the most, she or he.
What about the human being, the congregation?
That's what I mean, the congregation member. So if you're going to become priestly as a congregation member, how do you also then practice that with one another and with your priest and with your lenker? Can you serve the congregation? Can you unite yourself with the hidden dirt?
Aren't we doing it because we're drinking from the cup of wrath?
Yes, that's also true. Good question. But let me just finish here because we only have 2 more minutes and then we'll have question. So it looks like we're only going to get to this first point, but we're also coming into the second point. What does the washing of the feet mean? You're connecting to the destiny picture of another and you're trying to serve it. Think about your children. You're kind of doing that automatically with your children in a way, maybe unwillingly sometimes, right? But if you learn to do it consciously and freely, that's actually the most ingrained picture of washing the feet, because you suffer what your kids suffer, period. It's kind of automatic, but you can do that resentfully, or you can do that freely in the image and likeness of him. How do I take up and make a part of me the destiny picture and dirt of another? The most profound picture of experience of that for me is actually being a lenker. That's actually been a huge growing point for me. How do I take up the sufferings and unite with them of my colleagues and serve them? But probably you all know the Saskia story. Saskia's illness was a destiny I did not want to bear. It was personal dirt of hers that I did not want to take up. But the Lord in that experience showed me, I'm already doing this. And if you want to stay connected to me, you will take up her illness as your own. If I don't wash your feet, you have no part of me. That's the principle. Simon Peter said to him, after he says, you have no part of me. You are not in me if I don't wash your feet. Lord, not just my feet, but also my hands and my head. Think about what he's responding to. I would submit he's responding to, you have no share in me. You have no part in me. What does Peter respond to? I want to be with you. I love you. Of course, we know his lower self will come later again, but he's such a picture of ourselves. I want to love you. I find you so beautiful. I want to be with you. You notice that in my Saskia experience, it was the same thing. He said, I am doing this with her. I'm carrying this illness. If you go your own path of glory, you will not have a share with me. Lord, I want to be with you. That's what I said. I want to be with you. Good. So next time we'll look at the mystery further as we delve into how do we relate to the betrayer. We can already practice taking off our haughty crowns and our unjustified thrones and stepping down and starting to receive our truest self as a servant of others and their private dirt that is coming out in their destiny. Yeah. We can already start to unite ourselves with that as a picture of our truest self. Good. Perhaps that's enough for today. And we'll go into questions. I see 1, 2 questions already. Yes, Irene, why don't you start? And then Richard.
She actually, if I remember correctly, asked you, how long will you carry with them?
Oh, this is a different story, right? That's a very good one. I'll just take the opportunity, right? We were in the hospital. This is the other classic Saskia story. And she was about 4. And it was like 6 a.m. when we got released. And I took her on my shoulders and we were walking out of the hospital. And it was Sunday morning when I had to give a sermon and celebrate. That was when I was alone here. Remember those days? And so I was feeling, I'd spent all night at the hospital with her. I was feeling at my wit's end, totally empty. Saskia on my shoulders, the bag, you can picture it. She was 4. And we walk out and it starts raining. And it was like, just the last straw. What? And then Saskia said, like it was like a voice from up here, right? She said, how long will you carry me, Daddy? Oh, God, so much. How far? No, how far will you carry me? How far? Richard says, to the car? Well, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything at first because I felt weak and powerless, and I was frustrated and I had nothing left in the tank. And so that question was like piercing me because I wanted to carry her as far as was needed. I wanted to, but I didn't have it. So I prayed to Christ in that moment. Lord, give me the strength. Give me your strength to carry this child. And I was filled with strength that carried me and carried her.
Do we have months filled with?
Strength. Prayer works, friends, if you're earnest and exact about what you need and willing to be broken open. It's very true. And so then I said, well, as far as it is needed, sweetheart. So you can also ask Christ this question. How long will you carry me? Will you carry me? Are you even there? And remember, in the story of the Antichrist by Soloviev, the Antichrist himself, the great one, will not lower himself to be like those stupid Christian women that just say, Lord, Lord, help me. He's allergic to that. He won't set down his haughty crown and come off his unrighteous throne and actually become a beggar for the Spirit. That lives in us. That lives in me. I want to do it on my own and be the one. So this is a very, very powerful principle, to be willing to receive something actually from a being greater than you. Good. Okay. Thanks for that. Richard.
Yeah, so we have the Christian path, but there's also the path of um, knowledge of the higher world. So what's the pros and cons of each?
Good. So, yeah, just a light question. Well, what do we expect? I mean, come on. So Richard asks, well, dear Jonah, we have the path that's outlined in How to Know Higher Worlds. And we also have the book by Steiner. And we also have the Christian initiation path. Which one do you choose? Well, that's up to you. Can you choose both? Do they mutually fructify one another? Yes, they do. I will tell you that from experience. Do they need to be separate paths? Yes, they do need to be. I was very amazed when I went down to Florida and I led a conference recently on the relationship of anthroposophy and the Christian community. I went to Florida and did it. And I thought people were going to be all, like, well, that's not anthroposophy and that's not Christian. You know what the biggest concern was? Why don't they just unite and be one? What's the big deal about the difference? I was surprised. I was like, whoa, okay, I wasn't expecting that.
United States of mind.
United States of mind. So the most common complaint that I received in that conference was, why do we have to distinguish? Just, it's all Christ and Michael and
brothers and sisters.
yeah. So I can understand that from a certain point of view. But I also can really understand, and I think this is very important for our time. Imagine for yourselves, if I look at my biography, if I imagine that the church the Christian Community Church, the first church that unites exoteric Christianity and esoteric Christianity, according to Steiner, the only church that does that. If I were to imagine that anthroposophy, spiritual science, was fully united with the church when I was growing up, and when I was working at the Rudolf Steiner College bookstore to put myself through university when I was 20 and 21 and 22, and while I was 20, 21, and 22, every time I saw a book that said Christ on it, guess what I did? In the bin. No, not in the bin. Not interested. I had zero interest in Christianity, in religion, in Christ, in the mystery of Golgotha. Zip. I was actually allergic to it. Why? Because I thought it was just conformity. That's, of course, that's what most of us rebel against. And if you read How to Know Higher Worlds, it says nothing about Christ. Zero. Not one time. I joined a study group on the philosophy of freedom and How to Know Higher Worlds. Read How to Know Higher Worlds 10 times, began to practice all the practices. Super great. The thing is, actually, philosophy of freedom and How to Know Higher Worlds is all about Christ. It just doesn't name it that. It's okay. I only learned that later. I needed the freedom without the pressure of this is God to develop my own relationship to the Spirit. We need to have a sphere that is also being led secretly by Christ and Michael. Secretly, esoterically, hidden in a hidden way, that is free. Free of the, look, we go to the sacrament, but the sacrament is formed. It's set. God is, we're praying to God. I wasn't ready for that yet. Imagine if it wasn't possible to, in a free, scientific way, to explore how can I find my way to a spiritual experience. That's what I needed. I wanted to know step by step for myself first. And try to do the 6 basic exercises until I realized I can't do them. Oh, they're not meant to be completed. They're meant to bring you to the point of powerlessness. Help. So if I just look back on my own personal spiritual biography, if I didn't have anthroposophy in its free thinking realm, I would never have become a Christian. Never. I just don't think I would have ever. I needed to have the freedom to develop capacities, find my own way, wrestle with truths, think, learn how to think, learn how to meditate. The meditations aren't directly related to Christ at first. You only become aware of that gradually. So what would I say? Well, where does your heart call you? It's only, the Christian path of initiation is really only appropriate for someone who has decided through their own destiny life that Jesus Christ is the one. I want to devote myself to him and become in his image and likeness. I did not come out of the womb like that. Yeah. So if you want a serious Christian path and you've come to the real free recognition that this being is the one I want to get closer and closer to, then great. If not, if that's not there for you yet, take up How to Know Higher Worlds. And remember, even if you're on the Christian path, How to Know Higher Worlds is super helpful. And even if you're a spiritual scientist, coming to the sacrament can be super helpful. They're mutual. This nonsense about that you have to do one or the other, that's actually not the case if you take the full picture. I realized that one lecture, but that was for a very specific reason. A sin from a priest. It was a response to a priest, a Christian community priest, who said, if you don't come to the sacrament, you will have no connection to Christ. He also said, if you don't come to the sacrament, you will prevent the etheric Christ from appearing. This was a demonic Catholic element that came into the Christian community priest, and he was speaking it out, and Steiner had to actually over-exaggerate because of that element. It's a consequence of the sin of a priest. But if you take the fullness of what Rudolf Steiner says about the two, you see that what he mostly says is they're mutually fructifying one another. They're different, but must work together in general, maybe not in an individual biography, but they must work together for humanity so that one day in the sixth post-Atlantean epoch, they can come together rightfully as an institution. There's already a seed institution that has them fully united. Where is that? That already exists as a seed for the future. The seminary. The seminary is both an anthroposophical and a Christian community institution that have united. So that is a seed picture for what will need to become fully realized in the sixth post-Atlantean epoch. Okay, thanks for that really simple question, Richard. Brittany.
Good morning, Jonah.
Good morning.
I find myself strangely nervous to ask this question. Actually, I can feel it. And maybe we haven't quite gotten there yet in this lesson, but I'm curious to know if you can say more about being interested and united in some way with the personal dirt. Is that how you phrased it? The dirt of another. I find myself lately in a situation with a friend whose personal dirt is surfacing. And I'm trying to orient myself in this with them.
Yeah, good question. I mean, you were cutting out there a bit.
Oh.
So I'm going to repeat it and see if you correct me if I'm right. So what I hear you asking is, first of all, you're a little nervous to ask it, but how do we actually, what's a little bit more of the detail of how we work with the personal dirt of another? How do we actually wash the feet and take up or be connected to this personal dirt of another? Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. That's a very good question. I mean, and one could come at it with lots of different angles. Yeah. Let me ask it this way. Maybe everyone will know that. I'll ask a question to the question. If you see someone's problems and someone's kind of weaknesses and issues, what's generally your first reaction to it?
Point it out.
What?
Point it out.
Okay, point it out, but okay, but why? Aha, because you want to help them.
If you think it's their fault.
You probably think it's their fault. You want to fix it. I mean, most men, when their wife brings them a problem, they immediately solve it right there for them. Get out the toolkit. So the first reaction usually is, there's an issue. Let me fix it, point it out, blame it on them. Why?
Pray for them.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Lydia Marie says, I think you need to pray for them for sure. But let's just take it a little bit in process. Because the first thing usually is you're annoyed with their pain. You don't want to suffer. So blaming, fixing, solving, these are all ways to avoid having to bear their pain.
Is judgment not your own dirt also?
Yeah, that's usually the reaction. So a first step could be, before we get to the praying for them, which is very, very important, the question is how. The first step would be, try not to fix it. Try to not, to resist the impulse of giving them, oh, someone's sick. Oh, you know what? I have this remedy and this remedy and this. Oh, I've done this therapy and this. Have you ever experienced that? Then you don't want to tell anybody you're sick because they're just going to try to fix you. Resist trying to fix it. Unless they say, hey, Jonah, do you have any thoughts about how I could help myself? If they ask you, you can respond. But first, it's a hygiene question. And it's a beholding question. Why? If I decide I'm not going to fix it and I'm not going to blame or try to pinhole you, what do I have to do? I have to just be with you. I have to bear it. I have to suffer it with you. So this is the first principle. Enter the suffering. This is also what we teach in the seminary as the first step of pastoral counseling. Don't pull out your Steiner lecture and tell them what's the correct answer. That's super irritating. Nobody is interested in being near a know-it-all. Zero interest. No one has it. The other reality is that the pain is going to become the teacher. So blaming and fixing is like saying, I don't want to learn anything. The pain is actually a teacher. Just like your double is actually your teacher. So the first principle of working with the private dirt is maybe just trying to sense, maybe I'm just here to listen and not do anything. Maybe I can take the second step, and if they're, for example, if they're racked with grief, you don't go, why haven't you gotten over your grief yet? It's been long enough. You don't go, well, I read in GA, well, don't you know if you come to communion, Christ will free you of your grief? No, that's not helpful. Don't do it. The second question is there something, let's say they're in grief, can I also suffer their grief with them? What if I decided to allow them to have a share of me? What if I decided to Like Christ say, if I don't wash your feet, you have no part in me. Let me have a part of you. Meaning, I'm going to carry this grief with you. You don't even have to say it. In fact, I would recommend not saying it. Just inwardly decide, okay, my friend is in grief. I'm going to grieve with them as a holy path. What is that grief doing there? What is it trying to teach us? What is it leading us to? And it may come then, it may come for the person, it may come to you if you're asked. You may be able to just do it on your own, which would be the third step. How do I bring this into relationship with grace? How do I pray? So let's say, for example, that Eleonora is in grief, and I discover that, and I do this. I don't try to fix her. I just try to take her grief into myself and grieve with her. I can add the third step. Even if I don't say a word to her, it may be appropriate at some point to say that I'm praying in that way, but I could just silently pray to myself as her friend. Lord, O Christ, help us feel your presence in this grief. Carry my dear friend Ellie in her grief. Help us feel you grieving with us, because he grieves everything we grieve. And if you begin to feel his presence in the grief, you can stand at peace with it. You can stand at peace with it. He brings peace. He brings strength. Give me the strength to bear this to the end, whenever it is God's will that it will be lifted. Help this grief deepen my heart. Grief can do that. Help me not lose connection with your joy, O Lord, even in my grief. You see these refined prayers. Even in our grief. You see, for example, I pray for the pre-circle in that way, if I know someone's suffering in a certain way. I learn from the suffering what to ask Christ for. I practice uniting myself, not keeping myself separate from the pain. I can't always do it. I need my times of forgetfulness. Lord, give me the strength to bear with my brothers and sisters. So 3 steps, and hopefully that's a little bit helpful, Brittany. First, listening, not fixing. Secondly, can I bear it with? Third, can I pray? Can I connect grace to it? Good.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Jonah.
welcome. I've got Cecilia first and then Lydia Marie. Oh, and we have to end, so we'll see how much time we have. Cecilia. Yeah, thank you, Lydia Marie.
Hi, everybody. So as the balance to the other side of that, I have a tendency to try to do these things when I'm working with other people and struggle at the other end of it with boundaries, how to not enter too far into it, and how to remain upright and not impinge on their freedom or take too much on like how to remain upright, not lean too far one way or the other. Do you
Good.
have anything to say about that?
Oh, I have lots to say about that. That's fantastic. Great question, right? Because that's the other side of the pole. You could say one side of the pole is to remain aloof and always blaming it's always someone else's and I'm never scathed. Yeah. The other side of the pole is to lose yourself in everyone's problems. Yeah. There was a time when I was a young priest and I got really sick and I discovered that I was in a burnout mode. And that was because I had suffered under the idea that if I don't do it, Christ won't do it. In other words, if I don't try to help everyone and everything, it won't be good. And what I discovered, and we do have to end, but this can be something to think about, Cecilia. What I discovered is that actually the reason why I was overstepping my own limited boundaries was because I didn't have faith that Christ was carrying them. I thought I had to extend myself over everything. And I realized, even though I was thinking, if I don't do it, Christ won't do it, I forgot about the thought that actually Christ is carrying this whole region already. I'm just a little measly servant helping him. Christ is carrying, there is no mere human being that this Toronto congregation is dependent upon. That's a totally erroneous thought. Christ, this congregation is carried by Christ, Jesus. And we're dependent on him. And if I begin to think Ellie is only going to be helped if I extend myself, and I forget that Christ is carrying her destiny, he's already washing our feet. I'm just trying to join him in a little way. Then I lack the faith that is actually a strength. And then I burn out. But if I can pray, and what I discovered in that moment was I don't have a lot of that faith that Christ is carrying everyone. I discovered in that moment. So I began to pray for that faith. Lord, help me strengthen the faith that you are carrying Durham, even when I'm not there. Montreal, even when I'm not there. The region of North America, even when I have to make a boundary. Help me believe that you are the one carrying. Trust that my children's lives are being carried by Christ, even when they're in the disaster. We don't have a lot of that faith. We need to pray for that faith. That is one way to look at overcoming this other pole where I have a tendency to maybe to lose my boundaries, it's boundaries is a weird word. It's actually self-knowledge. Where do I stop? And Christ begins. Yeah? So very good question. Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you all. Blessings. I'll see you next week as we finish the washing of the feet and maybe get into a little bit of the scourging.